Hi, I want to welcome you today to here to Heart of a Father. We're having fun here, enjoying time with Todd, who's behind the camera, my good friend Steve. Welcome to both of you today.
Thanks.
And welcome to those of you who are joining us. Thanks so much for being here. We just want you to lean into your relationship with Jesus. Remember, as we share, how much you're loved. From that place, just receive all that He has for you today. And we're in a conversation about God turning our hearts to our fathers and the hearts of us as fathers, our hearts being turned to our children, which applies to all of us, turning our hearts to the next generation of those that are coming after us. And Steve and I have been talking about in that journey of doing some specific things. One, having our hearts turned to Jesus and cooperating with that. Second, modeling our hearts as children, no matter what our age, being turned to our fathers and honoring them. And third, in our relationship with our spouse, and in our case, our wives, being intentional about turning our hearts to our wives, because in that place we create a secure place for our kids where they can flourish and thrive as our hearts are knit together. As we talked about last week of our hearts being bonded with our spouses, that creates the environment for our kids to flourish. In fact, all these things do. They're the foundation. Hearts being turned to Jesus, hearts of honor turned to those who've gone before us, hearts turned to our spouses, creates a wonderful foundation for our kids to flourish. And ultimately, though, we have to then be intentional about turning our hearts to our kids. So one more time, Steve, I'm going to read this passage from Malachi 4, verses 5 and 6, the last two verses of the Old Testament, where it says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse." And so as we talk about our hearts being turned towards our children, Steve, once again, we've mentioned that you have three wonderful children, and just your daughter-in-law, your sons-in-laws, and then all your grandkids, and just a blessing in your life. And what's been part of your journey for you? What's been key in just you being intentional about your heart being turned towards the next generation and the generations after them?
There's some things that pop in my mind is the consistent battle we have with selfishness. And so for parents, sometimes they think, okay, I've poured out my life for these kids up to a certain age. I'm tired. You guys are adults now. Figure it out. I'm going to take a break. So I haven't done that. But that, there's the thing like I'm going to seek my own desires. Or I've brought you to this point. You can do it. And that's really what we want to do as parents is prepare them for adulthood. And so we don't hang on to them and keep telling them every move to make or anything like that. You prepare them and release them into their own responsibilities as they grow as children. So yes, absolutely. But we don't want to check out.
That's right.
You want to stay engaged, but the engagement changes, and you have to in a sense seek the right moments or the right issues or whatever it may be. Like, is this where I should speak up? Is this where I should take a certain action? Because you don't want to interfere at the same time and just come busting in like, hey, I'm your dad, listen to me. So it's a different approach. But the main thing is in my own heart, I have to stay engaged. Not think, okay, I'm going to relax now. But my engagement's going to look different.
Yes.
But in some respects, it takes more energy and effort, or it takes more intentionality, because when your kids are small, of course you have to feed them, of course you have to. Yes, it's like it's all the time there. But now it's sort of like there's space, and you gotta be careful.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I think too often we see it as a season, whereas there are many seasons in parenting, but the overall season is never over. In fact, unfortunately, I've heard and been tempted to, especially when I was younger, to buy into the thought, well, if I can just get this child to this, and for many parents, if I can just get them till they're 18, as if things are over, as opposed to starting from a very young age and not making them adults, in fact, embracing that season, enjoying the fact that they're kids, but going from the moment that they're conceived, realizing that part of God's heart and intention is that they would be fathers and mothers themselves. And so how are we preparing them to multiply down to the next generation beyond them? And so not seeing as like, oh, we're done, but actually helping them, as you said, mentor, coach them as they invite us into the journey, no matter what age, I'm grateful my son Seth was with us a few weeks ago, and he's now 30 and still having the privilege of having a wonderful relationship of speaking into his life and him speaking into my life as well. And that's such a joy. I want to actually read or tell some stories from the scripture that really challenge us today and really cause us to pause and say, as you said, is our heart selfish? Are we living for something bigger and beyond ourselves? Are we passing the baton off to the next generation, or are we just not even concerned about them? A wonderful king that we can learn so much from the Old Testament is Hezekiah. He did a lot of things right, but unfortunately he missed the most important point. And so in Isaiah 36 and 37, the king Hezekiah is ruling over the tribes of Judah in the south, and Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, comes to conquer the land and defeats many of the cities, but then he comes up to Jerusalem. And Hezekiah responds properly. He cries out to God for mercy. He prays, and God's response is this: I've heard your prayer, Hezekiah, and because you prayed, it literally says that, because you prayed, I will defend this city to save it. And shortly after that, the angel of the Lord comes and kills 185,000 of the Assyrian soldiers. And obviously they leave, and God shows up on the scene. And then in the very next chapter, after we can celebrate that victory, in a political sense, in a career sense for Hezekiah, in a sense even for the city, Hezekiah, something personal happened. He becomes sick, and when he's sick, Isaiah the prophet comes to him there in chapter 38, and he says, prepare your house, you're going to die. And once again, Hezekiah responds, and he prays and says, God, have mercy. And God immediately responds to that prayer, even before Isaiah gets home. He turns around, and he comes back to Hezekiah and says, because you prayed, God's going to show you mercy, and he extends 15 years to his life. And because Hezekiah recovers from his sickness, the king of Babylon now sends some envoys, some people to Jerusalem, and Hezekiah receives them, and they bring some gifts. And in chapter 39 of Isaiah, Hezekiah welcomes in, shows them around, and God responds to this and speaks to Hezekiah and says, because you've shown them all these things, all the things you've shown them are going to be carried off into captivity in Babylon. But even worse, your people and your sons. It says this, and they shall take away some of your sons who will descend from you, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon, which means as a eunuch that they would be castrated. They would no longer be able to procreate, to be able to have children. And so the most important part of Hezekiah's lineage and heritage is not his career, is not even our physical health, his personal importance, it's his own children. And here's his response to that, and it's heartbreaking. Hezekiah this time doesn't pray, but says to Isaiah, the word of the Lord which you have spoken is good. For he said, at least there shall be truth and peace in my days. And Steve, my only response to that is, God have mercy on us. That survivalist mentality, which all of us have been tempted, and I've been guilty at times of, well, if I can just survive, if somehow it can just work out for me, is so much from the heart of God. As God talks about turning the hearts of fathers to children, that he would break through that survival mentality, but say, no, I'm going to invest in the next generation. And so just respond to that today, this story, and whatever it stirred in your heart.
Sure. You know, I'm 65 years old, so my perspective has changed through the years of being a father and having a heart turned toward my children. So I realize that my expiration date is closer than it was 10 years ago, whenever my expiration date is on this planet. So there's a numbering of your days. That I think what it does, it helps me think through, and that's a very powerful reminder. I've heard that story many times, and it hit me again today. It's like seizing the opportunities. Like, I really want to, what can I do to promote the true success? How can I facilitate my grandchildren, my children being successful as unto the Lord? And if they're blessed monetarily, fine, or not, it's not a financial success, but it's a life success unto the Lord. And so that just stirs my heart. And another thing I was thinking earlier, Bob, is so often the challenge of parenting is we know so little about how to be a good parent as we're being a parent. So, I mean, Janice and I would talk sometimes, and this is probably the wish of every adult, well, I'd like to go back and relive my life with what I know now. Everybody says, could I do that, please? And I don't know if it'd be if I make a great movie for somebody to go back and relive their life with what they know now and see what happens. There's no guarantee it'd turn out better, but it could turn out a whole lot better. You think it would. But so that leaves us at a place of like, you know what? I'm going to look for other parents or fathers whose hearts are turned toward their children, or it appears to me they are. And I want to talk to them. I want to learn from them. And they may be peers, but then they could, if they're older, they could be a later stage of life. And that's so critical for us, I think, to do that. It's like, I need help. I want to learn from your experiences.
Absolutely. Well, that's so rich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this conversation is so important because it's about investing in the next generation. It's about investing in our own kids. If you don't have kids, if you're a young person, it's about investing in the person that's 2 years younger than you. Or if you're new in the Lord and you've only been walking with the Lord for a month, it's about investing in the person that's been walking with the Lord for just a day. Or even giving into our lives, because we all have something to receive from each other. So it's this spirit of generosity, of speaking life, of believing God to be the big God that He is, and that He can not only take care of us today, but as we die to ourselves, He wants to save His life, will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. And we'll not only find it in ourselves, but it'll be multiplied in the next generations. And so our encouragement to you today is to speak life over someone this week. If you have biological children, adopted children, if you have children in your home, speak life over them. Look them in the eye, tell them, I enjoy you because of this. This brings a joy to my heart. And speak the truth of them, something specific, the way that you include other people, the way that you laugh and enjoy the gift of life, the way that you smile and believe the best in others. It can be multiple things, but do that this week. And if you don't have children, find somebody else that's you can encourage on the journey, that's walking alongside you or maybe a step behind you, that we can multiply who we are into those around us in the next generation. Love you guys. We're so glad you joined us. We hope to see you soon.